To explain this, we have to talk about that. And by this, I mean that I've started cloning experiments on my own character designs in order to help with the workload around here. A situation that I shouldn't have gotten into in the first place if I'd just taken some of the most helpful advice there is for beginners, and yet here we are. Can you avoid arriving here yourself? In fact, in my years as a professional artist, character designer, visual storyteller, educator, working with some of the biggest brands there are, I've actually found that I was better at this particular thing when I was 17 making webcomics. And no, it's not my childlike wonder. I'm absolutely full of whimsy. If you aren't familiar with the Greek mythological figure of Sisyphus, he's condemned to a life endlessly pushing a boulder up a hill, and if he ever even got it to the top, his only satisfaction would lie in watching it roll back down the hill for him to start all over again. It ends up being a familiar situation for us that can apply to a lot of situations. But for artists, I want to expand that hill that these boulders are on into the third dimension. That hill is now a funnel, and at the bottom of the funnel are multiple boulders. You decide how many are down there. These boulders are universally referred to by many names. Ideas, projects, whatever they are, they're a channel for your creativity that through only fierce exertion, time, and will you can achieve. Mark as finished, feel accomplished about. And unlike Sisyphus, your reward upon pushing one of these out of the funnel is that you get to pick a new boulder. Simple as that. The problem, at least for me and assuredly many of you, is that because the funnel is not just one plane, but many in a circumference, and the boulders are all roughly the same size, it's extremely difficult to push just one boulder at a time. So maybe this rings true for you. The first few steps, pushing, let's say, this blue boulder up the hill, are easy, enjoyable even. They're giving the right amount of challenge, but slowly though, the slope intensifies a number of degrees, and call it shiny object syndrome, but that green boulder at the bottom of the funnel starts looking kind of nice. It's a little bit smoother, there's a good chance it's lighter, or at least it's shaped in such a way where it's sort of oblong, so you won't have to worry about it sliding back to you left or right. The nice thing is that the blue boulder isn't sliding back down the hill just yet, so you cautiously leave it there and go back for the green. The same thing happens, nice and easy first few steps, the exciting chance dawns on you that you really have some momentum now. Getting both boulders to the top of the funnel will be even easier now that you have this new resolve, and think of how much more accomplished you'll feel getting both of them across the finish line. This process repeats until you are somehow trying to push 3 to 7 different boulders up the hill at the same time. Oftentimes you'll lose grip on one and it falls back to the bottom, as boulders tend to do. For me, ADHD is a 4-letter word, but I don't think that this situation is exclusive to neurodiverse people. The novelty and challenge of starting over on something new, or adding another obligation to the project pile, splitting your time and focus into yet another fraction, is such an insidious trap. To put this another way, imagine going to a really nice restaurant, and instead of enjoying one good meal, you get the bright idea to have one bite of everything. Now your acidic foods and your dairy foods and your sweet foods and savory foods are all mixing together to provide you not with the satisfactory feeling of the entire restaurant's experience, but more likely just a dumb old stomachache. So why exactly does this happen? Well, as much as we might convince ourselves, it is not because we are just so creative and special that we can't help but work on more than one thing at a time. Usually, this is most directly the result of what the war of art will call resistance. Others call it something else. But essentially, it's anything that gets in the way of you doing the hard work. What's unique in creative projects is that ideas are often the really easy upfront part of something. It's infatuation, it's endless possibilities, it's idealism. You almost start to feel the satisfaction of having done the thing without even having started the first step of pushing it up the hill. It's the same cognitive dissonance that leads an idea man with neither the skill or desire to do something, nor the resources to hire someone else to do it, to call themselves, let's say, a game designer. It's also the same cognitive dissonance that leads anyone that's ever typed something into an AI image generator to foolishly feel like they've done anything other than steal from someone who actually made something. The fact remains that ideas are easy, execution is hard. Building the skills to be able to accomplish the thing is hard. Being disciplined and finding the time is hard. So it's why many lack the will to even start, and even some to peter out rather quickly. Something else, if I get really honest with myself, that I think can happen, is that juggling or pushing multiple boulders helps obfuscate something lacking, or an insecurity, if that makes sense. It's easy to tack on a disclaimer that this thing isn't as good as it could be if I was giving it 100%, because my time and attention were split with this other thing. And honestly, I think I've been split this way for the majority of my time as a creative. So I don't even know what it would look like to give one thing 100%. And there's likely a part of me that's afraid of it. It's like, so what if one of the spinning plates was wobbly? Isn't the fact that so many were spinning impressive? I guess so, but on the other hand, maybe not. I think it's a good question to ask yourself. It's one that's made me self-interrogate along these lines quite a bit recently. Reason being, as a creative professional, I have multiple boulders whose addition is indeed self-inflicted, but also some that in reality kind of need to be there right now. For example, I have an animated pilot to finish, but that costs both time and money to do, along with multiple stages of learning new processes, waiting on contractors to collaborate and contribute work, and because I can't give up on feeding my family and sit in a hole making an animated series, I have to also push some other creative boulders that support me financially. One of those, which I still can't believe, is being able to work for, and you probably won't even get to know for about a year who is. It's only like the art job that anyone would want. There's prestige that comes with having that company's name under your belt. And then of course there's multiple boulders chained together that look like this channel and the courses and teaching I do and the multi-step process of revitalizing those things that have to be done in order since each one affects the next. You also have the extra work taken on over the last year or so to pay the animators that I talked about in this video, and sometimes there the trap is that the boulder is so uncreative, so small and light and easy to push that you get a little sense of satisfaction from kind of just knocking one up the hill every day or two. The problem though is that the big boulders still remain. So without talking about my situation forever, the reality remains that one boulder, one project, one idea at a time may not even be possible for someone deep into their career. But I do think that it should always be the goal. The idea should be to aim for less. And when difficulties arise, the solution isn't to run back down the hill for something new, but to interrogate what about this has stopped the forward movement. How could you deliver, finish, ship this project in its current state so that it can be complete? And what is the shortest list of steps that would take, even if it isn't the easiest to do so? Classically, I think creative people will almost always underestimate the amount of effort something will take them and overestimate the amount of available time. It's the same infatuation and idealization again. Everything is rose-colored and consequence-free at the beginning before you've actually done anything. And it's why an idea guy or an AI image generator sound just as ridiculous as someone comparing themselves to a couple that's been married for 50 years just because they have a crush on someone. Like, do you want us to... what? Now, conversely, don't get projects and ideas mixed up with skill building. Oftentimes, a project is a perfect catalyst for helping you improve one or more disciplines at once. There is a danger of trying to improve too many things at once, but it doesn't create the same soul weight debt that I talked about, again, in this video. Practically, can you even look for ways to merge some boulders? You know, two birds with one... I mean, it's possible for something to be both funny and weird and dramatic and fleshed out. What's keeping two particular things separate? I've found that figuring out which things are less ideal, are taking too much time, or are more of something that I'd just like to see versus something I'm actually committed to making, then I can set something aside, or at least put it on the back burner, or merge it with another idea. So am I going to start following this advice? Well, I want to continue holding it out as a goal, simplify the amount of directions you're going with something, and not let the tendency to start something new to take over when you encounter resistance. But realistically, I probably won't ever be 17 making my webcomic as one of my only responsibilities on the planet ever again. Don't feel bad if you're split. Just stop using it as a coping mechanism, because ultimately you'll just start spreading your finite time and energy, exerting against more and more boulders, and it gets easier and easier for one of them to slip. Recently, I happened upon some of my old stuff in boxes that I had as a kid, and some of them were these Disney Adventures magazines from 2002, and it reminded me of one of my favorite, now almost extinct forms of advertising, which is magazine ads for games, especially the really out-of-pocket Nintendo ones. In this era, the CG was so primitive, and similar to what we did with O'Leary's Gulch a few years ago, high-def models would need to be made to promote and give an idea of the game. So I wanted to bring a little bit of that into my next piece, and that's why, very fictitiously, I've started replicating some of my favorite character designs in order to take on some of the workload around here. In all seriousness, the reality of making this illustration was quite a good microcosm of this whole video. Painting each trading card illustration often takes me a really long time, and I got the idea that rendering something in 3D might not just be a novel and new way of doing things, but that it might actually even be faster than painting. In reality, the amount of time to model and rig the character, along with my unfamiliarity with translucent textures and certain aspects of Blender's realistic lighting conditions, made it take twice the amount of time that I expected it to. Now that's mostly okay to me because this illustration is not the only purpose that I have for this luminoid character. Hint, hint, tease, tease. So other than the delay that I experienced, there isn't much harm done, and I still got to learn a bit in the process. But it would have been incredibly dangerous to grass is greener an entirely different process and set of skills just because the ones I was currently using felt difficult. All right, if I've sort of lost you in the last few minutes and you just want like a key takeaway from this video, here it is. You will always have new ideas. You will almost certainly never have enough time. The faster that we can reconcile that and accept it, the better we'll be at executing stuff. And that's all. Grab Biko's backpack and or the Learn Character Design course in the description below. Thanks for watching and have fun creating. If you haven't already seen the recent video that I've been referencing, the last update on Stormfellers before the trailer, check it out here.